Awesome. So we certainly want to be respectful of everyone's time because that's probably the most valuable and precious commodity you have. And so we do appreciate you joining us today. Can everybody hear me okay? Wonderful. I did get fully dressed for you today. I cleaned off my desk. Huge move in 2020, as you know. So thank you so much for being here with us today. I do want to share with you the goal of our panel. The goal of this panel is to celebrate the accomplishments of some of the women of the MS Analytics program here at Texas A&M and to share their journey in analytics with others that might be interested in maybe career advancement or maybe transitioning into analytics from another field. I was inspired by some of the amazing speakers that the MBA program has been bringing in, and I saw students asking great, insightful questions of very seasoned business people that they normally wouldn't have the opportunity to ask. And so I hope this provides a similar forum for some of you. In hopes that this will be conversational, we did not share our list of questions with the panelists, so they are indeed very brave today. We shared the first 3 questions or so they could get an idea of the flavor of what we were going to ask, but largely they haven't seen a lot of the questions that we have. Additionally, when you guys registered, or you ladies registered for this event, we had the opportunity for some of you to submit questions as well. So we'll share some of those too. So to better understand our audience and kind of where you are in the analytics sphere, we're going to do just a quick poll as we get started here, and I'll leave it open for about a minute. And you basically just choose how many years of experience you have in analytics or data science. All right. Going to go ahead and end polling. Looks like we have most of our votes in. And these are the results. Can everybody see that? So about 50% have 0 years. So that's truly exciting. You guys will get a lot of insight from today. About 32% 1 to 5 years, and a few very seasoned individuals. Great. Thank you again. So now just a brief introduction of our panelists. I think many of you saw the information from our marketing stuff. Hopefully that's sharing the right screen there. But we have Lauren Gordy. Lauren has a background in economics and finance from the University of Kentucky. She is class of 15 and is currently a senior data analyst of mass markets with Constellation Energy. She was previously in the restaurant industry, so just a point of reference for later when we get to ask questions. Allison Hugley has a background in psychology from Connecticut College, an MBA from Zicklin Business School in New York. She is class of 2017 with us and is currently VP of Analytics, Market Research and Communications at Prudential Financial. She joins us from the New Jersey, New York area for a point of reference as well. Kaylin Tanaku has a background with a BS and MS in industrial engineering from Texas A&M. She is class of 2019 with us. She is a data scientist at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. I understand a lot of Hewlett-Packard Enterprise folks registered for this event, so we are delighted that they are supporting you through that. Paloma Urbano has a background with an MS in Geoinformation Systems from Scotland's University of Edinburgh and an MBA from the University of Phoenix. She is class of 2019 with us, and she is a data analytics manager at ConocoPhillips. Barbara Thompson joins us with a BS in Ocean Engineering from Texas A&M. She's class of 2019 with us, and she is an early engagement business manager for the US and Latin America at Baker Hughes. My co-moderator is Dr. Lizette Laurence. She has a background in applied math from the University of Downtown. an MS in computer science from the University of Houston Clear Lake, and an EDD from National American University. She's class of 20, one of the most recent grads with us. She currently serves as Director of Analytics and Decision Support at Houston Community College. So she is in higher education. Monitoring chat with us today, if you don't already know, Javier Aldape, my partner in crime and program manager. His background is in Spanish and modern languages and is working on a PhD in Hispanic studies. Myself as director, I also have a background in Latin American studies, a master's in Spanish literature as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we will get started with questions. Dr. Laurence, I'll let you begin.
Can everyone hear me? So you can nod your head. Okay, great. Our first question posed to the panelists is, how do you earn respect, or in your cases, how did you earn respect in male-dominated workplaces?
Having the credentials is helpful. I think if you notice the panel and sort of the recitation of the degrees, the credentialing definitely helps. I think as a woman, especially in my background, which is in comms, which generally is very strong in analytics, having the credential has definitely helped. And then the technical skills that were learned in that process to be able to ask the pointed questions. I think oftentimes I find, especially now that I'm working more closely with technology partners, which is a great experience, but I often find that there's a constant testing. There's a constant use of language and jargon that you can get tripped up on, and that is really used to test whether or not you belong in the club. I think that's true if you're trying to present yourself in technology. I think it's true if you're presenting yourself in finance, or really almost in any field. So the ability to identify a network and identify mechanisms of shortcuts to speak the language of the club is first and foremost important, because that gets you kind of the bona fides and the street cred. And then I think it's, you know, as a woman, I think there's a constant pressure to deliver again, and then over deliver some more. And so the idea of being able to get in quickly, really assess right away what are your quick wins, and look for people. And a lot of it comes with reading the room. Like, pick your opportunities. If you find someone that's kind of in a group and you see an opportunity where you can add your skills to help build that network of allies and partners who respect you for how you are helping them get it done. So I think sometimes pursuing your own agenda can be, don't ever lose sight of your ability to kind of help someone else a bit, because then that becomes the resource that's going to help you get ahead and becomes your champion, and the voice in the room that when you're going to be challenged is going to step up on your behalf and back you. And so it's constantly thinking about first getting into the club and then building your alliances within it.
Great, thank you. I'm going to start with another easy question. This is one y'all expected. Can you describe a day in the life of your job as a data scientist or analytics professional? What's your day like?
I could describe my day. I'm an HR analytics manager, so I manage a team of people that they do analytics, and we liaison with the Analytics Center of Excellence within ConocoPhillips to provide some of the more in-depth data scientist studies. So my day is a lot of fun because it's working with a lot of people, coordinating, facilitating from the business problems that we're going to solve, what is the challenges that we have at hand, an ever-changing environment, which I really like. The oil business goes up and down, but it's part of the fun because we're always adjusting. We have mergers and acquisitions. We have the fun of the market going up and down, and all of that impacts what are we doing in analytics, what are we studying, what are we delivering to the business to make those decisions better. And in my case, specifically just now, is with regards to all the talent, the people, the workforce planning, all the resourcing, and so on. So it is a lot of looking for those opportunities. There is not one day that is the same. What it has helped me is I have an amazing team building those relationships with the team and outside the team, and leveraging all the amazing resources that we have, it has definitely been key.
One of the questions from our audience was, or is, if someone was looking to change industries, what would be your strategic recommendations for them? You say is that they should assess their current inventory and see how it maps to where they want to go, and that you were emphasizing that networking is important, and going back to what Allison said, the credentials, even if it's not academic, you gave a great point about meetups for learning more about the new industry and certifications and building a portfolio before you delve in. Did I get that right for a summary?
We're going to be starting with the numbered questions, just FYI. So I'm going to go with number 2 because they flow just a little bit better. So what job duty do you spend most of your time on currently?
I'll jump in here. Currently, a lot of it's data cleaning, and that never kind of goes away, at least with ours. I've seen a transition with it. When I first started, it was a lot of that, a lot of kind of getting in, learning the data, learning the systems. I've been in with the company I'm with for 5 years, and we run a lot of models. We do a lot of modeling and stuff. But to get to that point, a lot of it is cleaning the data, understanding what data you have. There's been more of a transition in the past year or two within my role to be more of a subject matter expert on kind of our data systems and structures to help out other teams with kind of getting the data and the analysis that they need to the right person. But a lot of it, I'd say almost half and half of kind of helping and being the subject matter expert to different teams with analysis, and the other half is kind of working with the data and figuring out what we have.
Great. Any other panelists want to answer that question? The job duty you spend most of your time on?
So now I've been at my company for under 2 months. So I actually spend a lot of time in meetings talking to people, which is interesting as, you know, as a data science. But at the end of the day, I need to figure out, you know, what is this data? Where does it exist? And what quality is it in each system? And who owns it? And who's the subject matter for all these different components of it? And, you know, I spend all my and figuring that stuff out. And that's one thing really interesting, even if you have a technical job, you think of data science as being very technical, and it is. You need those technical skill sets, but you also really need to be able to build relationships and communicate well too. And so kind of those soft skills are really actually very important.
Great, thank you. Dr. Laurence, you want to go with question 3?
Yes, I have the list now. I'm sorry, I was looking at the wrong list. I have the numeric list now. So for question 3, what do you love most about your career in analytics thus far? Or what do you love most about having analytic skills?
What I appreciate most about it is analytic skills is that it happens to be a point where they're in very high demand. So I've been in sort of research and started my career in market research over 20 years ago. And I remember my first boss was kind of like, "You're never going to make any money, so I hope you like it." And I was like, all right, well, I have this psychology degree. So it started out very much as a survey, traditional research function. What I like about it is that there's kind of this constant continuation of an adventure. I've never been bored with my profession, and I've actually never, I've been fortunate, knock on wood, to not have had shortages of opportunities. I've definitely, again, attending the MS Analytics program, I've definitely put the time in to refine my skills and sharpen them along the way. But being in a space that's focused on data with the increasing complexities of the world around us, whether we're grappling with COVID or climate change or babies, data is at the center of solving current near-term problems as well as farther, longer out problems. So being at the center of those conversations is important. Also, as a woman, I think coming into conversations with a level of data fluency again, understanding the language, being able to broker and navigate a conversation that is purely evidence-based. Oftentimes women are perceived as not having technical skills, as being very emotional. And I completely agree with Kaylin that success is having command of the soft skills, but what gets you respect at the table, it's the hard skills. And whether you're applying your analytics to oil and gas industry or to finance or to comms and data analytics in the communications field, I think as a woman, you get instant credibility when you show up anchored to the quantitative. And I just have viewed that as being a powerful component of being able to navigate and broker my career, even to the point of giving me access and entry into senior level roles that are analytics, data science plus, where, for at Prudential within our global communications team, I sit on the SLT. So I'm not just the research person. I'm seen as someone who's responsible for the core data function, but also our talent analytics for the function, interfacing with, a whole range of tools and technologies that support the work that we do. But getting that entree into that role was because I could start the conversation from an empirical space, which is valued. And I think it allows us to show up differently and in unexpected ways. Not without challenges, but if we can get in, it works in our favor.
Our next question is, and I know that non-disclosure agreements and things like that might preclude you from answering, but does anyone have any recent, current or recently completed special analytics projects that you were working on that you might want to share with the team? Just kind of giving them a flavor of what kinds of analytics projects you work on. Oh, Barbara, I can't hear you. It looks like you're speaking.
Does that help?
Yes, perfect.
Okay, I had the wrong button. Okay, hi everybody. So my day job is not data analytics. I got the degree, thought I would make a career change, but I'm still back in the oil and gas industry doing business development on large subsea projects, which is still pretty cool. And every now and then I sneak in a little segmentation on the market or something, just throw that by everybody. But I am very active in my industry, and in the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, our petroleum division wants to make a better impact on how the digital transformation is integrated into our business. And so I was hired to write the guidelines for ASME, and I'm doing that right now. And I can't discuss what I'm going on, but I was able to get some assistance get some real world examples to integrate into the guidelines besides just being a theoretical document about how that works. And it's been really fun. And that's grown into a second activity for me. We're going to put on an annual conference, and I'm now the technical chair and on the advisory council for that. So I'm not actually day-to-day hands-on with that analytics, but I'm looking at how it impacts business, how it can be used, and really trying to guide other people on how they can integrate it. Because for people outside the data analytics world, it's scary to them. It's like another language. They don't understand. They hear all the words, big data, digital transformation. What does that all mean? And so I kind of act as that go-between translator for everybody that's trying to work on it. Certainly not the expert. I've been taken to task from a couple things that I had were assumptions they were not. So it's been great learning. And I find in this part of my career that I like learning. And so I'm still using that. And so anyhow, writing these guidelines will be published in January 2021. Will be an accomplishment I never would have dreamed when I started in 2017 doing this, thinking that I was looking for a new career. So it's kind of an add-on to my career. I'm also doing some other consulting for other businesses now that they found out I can do this, and they're really pretty simple stuff compared to what I know a lot of you people are doing. But it's great to be able to have that capability to help people and make data speak to them in some way, and using those soft skills that Kaylin was talking about, because being able to explain it to people tells you that you understand it. If you can't understand and explain it simply, then you really don't have a comprehension. And I really appreciate the program I went through and the support I have. There's several women on here that helped me graduate. I want to say thank you to them, because my experience was more in project management than it was hard data. And the team environment was very, very helpful.
I've got a project I can probably talk about. So it's that maybe that you see the commercial, but one that we've been working is an electric company, kind of the residential small business side. So, you know, the Reliant for Constellation. One of the things with customers is just trying to understand, it's sort of can be an up in the air bill for a lot of people. So as they're trying to budget and things, your electricity bill, especially in the summertime, can be all across the board depending on the weather and everything. So I created a predictive bill model that helps customers kind of from the beginning of the month predict what their bill is going to be at the end of the month, and hones itself, you know, as you get closer to the end, so that you're not starting off the month and it might be 100, it might be 250, and really like helping people as well as they're trying to adjust, you know, their carbon footprint, understand their utility usage, trying to be more informative to them with that data so that the customers can make better, you know, environmental choices as well as budgetary choices for their own being with it. So that's probably one of our big ones that we've rolled out this year.
Very neat. Very useful.
I could share also one of the efforts that we've been doing, and you all have heard the news about diversity and inclusion in the companies. So our company started to be more open and transparent to the metrics that we have about the organization and the workforce. And we published a study this year and a dashboard on this is how we look like, and this is maybe what we want to look like in the future. And I'm bringing this up because the technical task was super easy. The issue was how it was going to be received, the message that we need to provide to the employees, and then the data privacy, which is something that I never thought as much as it would limit what we do technically, but it has been definitely an eye-opener. Overall, it was a great project, but something to think when you go into the data science, you have all of these ideas, we could do this, we could do that, and then all of a sudden you find all these roadblocks. It's like, well, we may have to ask employees if we can even look at this data, or you may need to ask externally. So it's just other consideration. I also want to make the comment that Kaylin made about talking and being in meetings, and I spend a lot of time just talking with people and selling the possibilities and the opportunities that we have with analytics. And that to me is the hardest job, because you say it one time, it's like, oh, I think they got it. And then you go to the next meeting and it's like, well, you need to show me the business value. I'm still not getting it. I was like, wow, okay, we're back to steps and we need to continue the conversation.
Build on that point, because I also, in addition to like continuous learning professionally, I also study martial arts, and I think there are some similar misconceptions about the study of martial arts and the study of data science, or really any field. You grow up with this mindset that like, I'm going to be a black belt, and what no one tells you until you're almost there is like, then you become a black belt of the first degree, second degree, third degree. So the black belt in and of itself is like really the beginning of your journey. It's where you have enough technical skill that you can refine and sharpen. And I would just encourage those who are on the line that are a little bit newer to the point that was just made to data science, and you're at the beginning of your academic journey, you're thinking about career change. This is the beginning. The credentialing is the beginning. And if you're in fields like data science, technology, really because they intersect with so many other businesses and are central to so much of just the day-to-day operations of every field, this commitment to continuous learning is just the norm. So this is a strong, solid foundation, an excellent jumping off point. But my husband laughs at me all the time because he's like, what are you doing this weekend? I'm like, I have a course I have to finish. He's like, I thought you were done like 3 years ago. I'm like, it's never done. So like, just lean in. That the whole idea of like, really like, it's a sexy term. And when I first leaned in on it, it was like, oh my God, data science, the career, the future. Yes, and at the end of the day, there's a commitment there. There's a commitment that this is a constantly evolving space. Outside of the basics, if anyone tells you like I'm an expert, same with technology, digital, et cetera, they're lying. Like at the end of the day, you are constantly learning, constantly improving, constantly refining. This gives you the toolbox to sharpen and again pick the areas where you want to focus. But this is the beginning. So like view this wherever you are when you walk across the stage, which is a magical moment. That's getting your black belt, which gives you license to go forth and practice and refine. But this field, the world just broadly, is just so dynamic. There's no, if you want to be relevant, there's no end to this learning journey. And I think as soon as you accept and embrace that, you're setting yourself up for continued success.
Thank you.
We're moving on to number 5, Myra. Okay. There is no consensus on whether analytics or data science is a male-dominated field. Some describe pockets of this field as female-dominated, such as natural language processing jobs. Given your experience, is analytics currently male-dominated? Currently.
I would say I'm not really sure because I'm not working in a data science group, but I work in the offshore oil industry, which is nothing but male dominated. So there's so many more women doing it. Paloma knows, and so does Kayla. There's so many more women doing this than there are in what I do in the rest of my day job. It doesn't seem that way to me. And I was so impressed with the number of very talented women that were in my class, and I see the people on here. And I'm excited to see people like Dea, who's a colleague of mine on here. I know she's in the program right now. That I see it as pretty wide open for women. It's just a different world than when I started working. So I think so much of it is done anonymously, and you're not necessarily in teams where you see people. There's so much done like what we're doing now that what they're looking at is your work product, you know. And if you enter in with the credentials and the confidence that I know certain things and I belong here, I don't think it's a problem at all. I have yet, certainly in none of the things that I have done, nobody looked at me weird and said, oh, you're going to do this, and women don't do that. I've not run into that. Now, there may be pockets where that exists. I can imagine working at Saudi Aramco could be challenging, but I really think it's as much as anything could be gender neutral in a career. It seems like it is to me.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead, Allison. I was going to say, my entire analytics team is actually female in my job. So we're probably, 2 of us actually have our MS in analytics. We met in the program. So we're probably more of the oddity with it. We've got a 5-person all female analytics team, which is, it's a lot of fun. I enjoy it. but I definitely think when we work outside of our team within the company and our larger, it's a Fortune 100 company that we roll up to, it is more male. There seems to be more men in the sphere, but there is definitely a lot of space, and I don't feel like it's quite, to Barbara's point, it's definitely, if you've got the skills and the behind the scenes thing, it's less of a barrier, I feel like, than in some other industries.
My experience has been, and I also have a female, I've won 2 guys on my team now, but a lot of ladies. But I think it's the side of the data analytics that you sit on. So what I've observed, and again, it's sampled 1, is that oftentimes the users of the data, the teams that are creating the models and doing the analysis and then doing the reporting and the distillation tend to be female. At least in my company, I have seen a skew towards more of the data engineers, the ones that are building the lakes and the environments, et cetera, connecting the pipes, if you will, tend to skew male. And I have found I have definitely sought out female talent that sits in that space, just because, again, it's about making sure that they have some championship and that they're kind of given their due for being within those teams and being, one of a few. I also think that sometimes, it's getting the inside track into, again, some of the languages and some of the cues where you're like, why is that taking so long? Why does that cost so much? And you're like, I appreciate that you're building this environment, but kind of getting that situational awareness. I've definitely found that to be a little bit more of a mystery box with a few more guys on that side. But I think it's definitely changing. And I think, for example, at Prudential, the leadership team now that we have within our global technology function is headed by an amazing woman, Stacey Goodman. The head of our CDO group, our chief data officer, is a woman named Cherston Moody. So the idea of seeing this influx of women, I think there were definitely amazing women, and to the point of having kind of the sisterhood that got you to across the stage, definitely true when I was there as well. And I think a lot of that is beginning to change. But for me personally, it is, I gravitate towards anyone who's talented, but there are moments when you step back and you see women at the helm of the organization leading the technology and the data functions, that it is inspiring, and it allows you to really see this is how far we've come and how far we still have to go. So at Prudential, we're a 145 plus company, and we're on our second, actually the prior head of our technology group was also female. So we have, a few generations there, and also especially in the data function newly created, being led by a woman is exciting.
Outstanding. I have a celebration moment to share with you guys. So typically in the past, we assign teams, and I usually struggled to find one female on each team. This year, it was very, very different for class of 2022. So we actually brought in a cohort that was 37% female. So we went from like 15 to 20% to 37% female. I don't know exactly how we did it, but it's awesome. I can tell you, I now have 2 or 3 females on a team. So it's almost an equal balance between male, females on teams. So we were really excited about that, and we love seeing that change. Great. I'm going to skip one of the questions, Dr. Laurence, and move to this one. So Susan Packard, who's the co-founder of HGTV, says sports are analogous to business. And she describes some workplace strategies in terms of sports or gamers terms. So what are your strategies or recommendations for leveling up at work? Anybody leveled up recently? Promoted? New title?
I have a new title. I went from senior solutions engineer to data scientist when I moved to my current role, and that it kind of goes back to the networking piece, right? I was referred to my role by a colleague who I graduated with in my master's program. So that definitely helped. The degree helped. And then also just like basically in your regular job, if you can, find the kind of work that you want to be doing and incorporate it into what you are doing to get those skills up, do that as much as you can. And, it's hard because you're busy with your day job, right? Like I had my day job, which was more, data visualization, and I wanted to do more data science. So, you really have to sometimes seek out those projects, and, and maybe that comes by, becoming really an expert on the data in a certain area. And so then kind of naturally through some conversation, find some kind of, analytics or data science type project comes out of it. Some things like that, just, I think it's kind of just got to play it by ear. And then, if you're not in a place to start a whole master's program, there's so much content online that you can take, and it's really cheap, and it's really like manageable chunks. Like you can take one class and kind of see, if that interests you and if that's where you want to go. And that's how I started. I took a few classes before I started my master's to decide, hey, is this data science something that I really like, that I want to do?
I would say be the master of the assist. So that's a sports term. It's where, my son plays soccer, so he wants equal billing for scoring the goal and providing the assist. But if you think about your role, whether you're managing up to your boss and assisting them and making sure that they shine, that supports your whole function. So the way that you bring data and creativity through the data function to help them make the case for the business that they need to demonstrate success is important. But I think it's also the assist that you give to your left and your right. So to either your teammates or the people that report to you. So the idea of how do you think about the skills that you've acquired and transfer that knowledge or those skills to someone else. To Kaylin's point, like not everyone will immediately be inspired or sufficiently self-directed to take a course before they pursue the program, but you can expose people to a stretch project, right? And then once they've stretched a bit, then that introduces them to possibly pursuing the full credential. And in that, what you're doing is you're expanding the skill sets of your function. So you're assisting someone in discovering their next step. You're assisting the function in expanding their capabilities. That helps your immediate team. That also ladders up to helping the overall function and your boss look good. I would also say sometimes think of the assist outside of your lane. I oftentimes feel, having spent most of my career in research, that you can kind of get pigeonholed into being the data person. And that's great, but because data sits at the center of everything now, like stretch the wings a bit, figure out where there are opportunities to kind of guide, get involved in, I think Barbara mentioned this, some additional assignments that are outside of the core function that help people to see you differently, help them to see you as more than sort of the number cruncher data person, that you are strategic, that you're a business person who is focusing on data, not a data person that supports the business. And I think pivoting that role to position yourself outside of necessarily being a support function, I think is very important as you think about sort of the long-term trajectory of your career. It's figuring out other spaces where you can play, reading the field as another sports analogy, like figuring out how you get open. And I think it might have been Barbara who mentioned this, but like, how do you find something that someone else isn't doing that's not being tackled, and how do you get on that? So read the field and then run to the open spot, and then you can catch the ball that no one's paying attention to. That helps you shine, but you're also assisting the team, get over the goal.
I think on the sports analogy too, I think games are exciting, but you have to practice. And I think everyone's kind of noted this, that it's not you get your master's and you go and you're never, I normally, at least in recent years, especially in the pandemic time, I've tried to set aside time on Friday, sit, research. I have a problem I need to solve, and I'll just spend time trying to come up with that solution that I can implement. A lot of times it's something I don't know already, and I've got to go down a rabbit hole of lots of online sources where you can learn something to solve a solution. I think that's shooting the free throws, getting ready to be in the game with it, but kind of spending that time and making sure you're taking the practice time to really learn and continue your learning, because things change constantly in this field.
On the sports analogy, you can decide to be a deep expert on something so that you're a skill player and you do that, or you can be a utility player where you're the Swiss Army knife that can fill in wherever need be. And that's usually been what I've done. I'm not an expert at anything, and I never will be, but I like to be conversant in most of the topics so that I can identify what's relevant and what's not. And so I've just made myself available. The up and downs of the oil and gas market, I've been working since the early 80s. And so I've been through a lot of these things. So there is no job too dirty, no job too non-technical versus technical. And that has definitely expanded my vision. And certainly engineers aren't known for empathy, and I'm one of them. So learning that soft skill you're talking about, probably the hardest thing I had learned to do is to not be one of the guys, because that's kind of how I got along, is to be one of the guys. But you're right, it's probably more acceptable if they see you in the role that they think you're supposed to be, but at the same time, balance that with your intellectual curiosity and your skill sets. So you have to decide for yourself, from your experience, where do you fit in best? Are you really super good and you have all the passion to do one thing? Then that's what you should do. We can't all have the exact same roadmap. But if you like a lot of things and keep learning on Friday afternoons, I think that's so cool. And start, sharpening your tools on a variety of things because you just happen to be interested in that right now. And it may just come up at work the next time you're there. Look, I just learned how to do this, and I can offer that up.
Myra, I have a couple of chat questions that I'd like to bring up. I have one that was a follow-up from Allison's response about building credentials. So with someone with 0 years of experience, what would be the turning point while building these skills? This is a student in the program right now, first semester. What is the turning point while building these skills when one can preferably make a career shift?
I actually think it goes back to Barbara's point on, and also the point that was raised earlier around sort of practicing and finding opportunities. So, when I was in the course, I wasn't particularly proficient at modeling. I'd usually worked with statisticians, and I would pass the data over and they would hand it back. I think as soon as you're able to identify the opportunity that you can apply your skill against a project, do it. There's no reason to wait. There's no shortage of data, opportunities, and needs. Like, find a creative inroad. What I tried to do with each of the courses is think about a conversation I could have with someone in the organization, if it was doing a database build, speaking with our guys in tech that were doing similar work, to kind of create the fluency and let them know that I was thinking in the space. So if they had a project and I heard about it, I could do some on the side kind of discovery. And then I just started to look within my function, things and questions that I wish I could have answered. And even some of the beginning courses, just going through sort of the basic regression and everything else, and to start applying taking the projects, again, that weekend work, and applying it against something I was doing within my career. So as soon as you feel that you know enough to ask a question, just start experimenting. The other thing that I would recommend is either in the program or outside of it. I had the benefit of working with someone who was an econometrician at the time I was doing the coursework. So he was my go-to. So I had a friendship with him. So it was never anything that was like mission critical for the company, but I would do a few side projects and then I'd run it by him. Hey, what do you think? I'm just doing a quick proof of concept. Can I get some feedback? So try to identify some within your organization or outside of it to do some testing. But as soon as you know enough and you have access, lean in and start sharpening the skills. Again, that idea of building your portfolio, but you're only going to get there through practice. And there's no point to wait until after you get the full credential to start, because another thing that people don't often tell you, it's like with dance or any other sport, if you don't practice the skills, you'll lose them. So I've had some instances where I'm like, SQL was great like 3 years ago, but now I have to go back and retrain because I wasn't using it every day. So find reasons to apply it. Even if you go to some sites on the side, get access to some publicly available data and just start playing. That's really the best way that you can prepare yourself to make the transition. It's in that practice, and then finding some practice moments that you can then showcase internally to help socialize that you have that you're acquiring these skills. I hope that was helpful.
Any other ones, Javier? Are we good?
There's one, but I believe Gateway answered it. So the one was, how can you convince a supervisor manager that is naive about analytics to incorporate data science into the current process of a team?
And I just want to add, like, you know, even once you've gotten someone to buy into the idea of doing a project, I do think that as a data scientist, it's your responsibility to prove that what you're saying, you know, here's my inputs and then I'm going to predict, and this is what you should do. This is where you should drill your well because my data says so. Like, it's part of your job as a data scientist to prove why that's true. So like, part of it is making a good model. Part of it is making it an interpretable model. And then part of it is communicating and showing and proving that what you're saying is so, right? They shouldn't have to just trust you. And that's why, and that's one reason why, you know, data visualization and storytelling is such an important part of this whole data science and analytics space. I think that's a good tool for that too.
There's a great book. It's called If Then. I think the company was called like Symblematics. It's like a back in like the 50s, 60s, 70s discussion about a company that was launching sort of what was the data science capability, something not too dissimilar from what Cambridge Analytica did in the last election that got a lot of scrutiny, but it wasn't the first time that had been attempted. It's a very interesting read to understand the pitfalls of kind of overselling the capability to that point around skepticism and how you need to think carefully around the application, the crafting of the narrative. I think for quite some time, data science has been positioned as like, it will solve all things. You don't need, like, who needs common sense when you have data points? That's not true. You need subject matter experts. You need process and methodology and methods to be methodical. So it's an interesting read just as a context point to kind of understand that one narrative that I think pretty clearly illustrates skepticism that is bubbling under the surface with respect to data projects. The point earlier around kind of the generation that failed. It's just a good read to kind of balance this idea of the art of the possible with data, but tempered with just some of the realities of where it has not served society well in the past, which brings a level of scrutiny, but also just root project fails in terms of the approach not being sound. I think the author is Jill Lepore. I'll put it in the chat.
Great, thank you.
All right, panelists, our next question for you. There are many project management approaches used in business. What is your first step in approaching an analytics project?
You have to define the question. You have to start with defining the question and the business need. I think oftentimes, especially in a business setting, I think it's different in academia. You can kind of go deep in the pursuit, but in the business environment, you really have to hone in on what is the question and the target outcome, and then back in from there. And I just want to apologize because I have a sad hard stop at 2, which I'm very disappointed about, but it has been an amazing moment to participate in this discussion. And I thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if I could follow on to that, there's got to be a business reason for everything that we do, whether you hire more engineers or you hire more data scientists or you hire more accountants, whatever it is in your company. And data science is no different. And I think earlier we were talking about skeptics. The skeptics come from they don't see the business value. When we were trying to get Offshore Technology Conference to embrace data science as one of our technical tracks, there were a lot of skeptics that didn't want to do it in the early days. That actually motivated me to get the master's because I wanted to learn about it. But one of the things we did is the first year we had a panel on what is this stuff, and the next one it was like, what's the business model? Why do we do this, and what's the benefit to the company afterwards? And certainly within the guidelines of writing for ASME, there's a whole section on running through how do you build the business case, how do you get the stakeholders enrolled across the entire company and keep them enrolled as the project goes through, not just say, here's the beginning, I'll come show you the answer at the end. Kaylin's very right. You've got to be able to express why this is important and not just vomit a bunch of Excel spreadsheets at them and go, here's the answer. You've got to be able to write the pros, you've got to have the visuals, and you've got to have, just like any sort of report, a beginning, middle, end, and then actions that they can take. So if you've gotten those skills from anything else you've done in your life, they're going to be much more important. And I really, just to put a word out for the program at A&M, so many of these analytics programs are just about the modeling, the numbers, becoming the world's best Python coder. Those are all great things. But if you can't explain it to anybody, it doesn't value. It doesn't mean anything. So being able to understand that, I think when you go through your career, when you're thinking about becoming a data scientist, or if you're in the program right now, do not dismiss the soft skills you're going to learn. That Myra is a complete genius on how she has structured those teams. So every semester our cohort change, but we still seem to have the right distribution of skill sets. Learn from that, because that's what's going to be like when you get into your career. However you apply data scientists, you're going to need all those different skill sets to help you.
Yeah, I was going to comment on what Barbara talked about, which we see a lot is, especially in young people, that they want to get into data scientists. So the first thing they do is to take an R, a Python course, and they come to us. It's like, I have this model. What do I apply? What do I do with it? And we always go back to, it's like, no, you started from the end with nothing. You have to start from the beginning. What is the question? Why are we doing this? Versus, I just want to code something. I don't know what. So I have to say the Master in Analytics was amazing to create that foundation. Where do we start? Where is the question? Where is the business driver? And that emphasis and that foundational piece to me is critical, because as Barbara mentioned, we get a lot of people. I know Python, I know this, but I don't know how to do critical thinking. I don't know how to express the question that I'm trying to do. I don't even know how to structure a complex problem. Like that's what analytics we use a lot for, very complex problem that we have tried something else and it failed. So you're dealing with a lot of complexity that you need to divide, you need to structure, you need to think through, you need to brainstorm. And that's the other part that I really like of analytics, that you use a lot of creativity. You go through the process and sometimes you just don't see the model happening. You get a really bad model. something is not working, and then you bring someone else into the picture to start brainstorming, and they come up with a different idea. What about doing this? And then things start clicking. So that brainstorming and critical thinking, it is very important.
Great, thank you. So success does not come without failure. Can you think of a work-related failure that you can laugh at now that you want to share? Maybe it was a really bad model. Maybe it was a misguided conversation. I don't know. These are always fun after the fact, right?
We've tried to solve, and I won't go into too much detail, but with customers that leave us mid-contract with their electricity contract. And it's been a problem that we've tried a lot of different ways to solve. We're still working on solving it. I took it on a couple of years ago and kind of created, it became a joke with some of it, of this is kind of, it's the whale you can't get, but it, to get a good model going with it. So we've tried a few models and definitely wasn't the best, but some of it too, we learned some from it. Like that's one of the things that I've taken with most failures at work is, what did we learn? Did we learn that something doesn't work and we can take that into the next step and move forward with it? So I try to focus on the learning within the failures, but there's definitely, I think especially with the data, when you're, depending on how deep or what your team looks like, most companies, if you're starting with something new, there's a reason it's a problem. And if there's a reason you're looking for a solution and it's not always the first thing you try, it's definitely something I've learned.
At ConocoPhillips, we are starting a theme of learning from the failures. So we do monthly sharing of different analytics projects, and we share both what has failed and what has succeeded, because a lot of time, as you mentioned, is like just the model doesn't work and we don't have either the data or we don't have something, and we just need to admit the failure, fail fast, and then move on and learn from it.
Great point, thank you.
Ladies, balancing work, personal lives, and school is stressful. Can you share some methods of what you've done to relieve? I see a lot of smiles.
So I have kind of a semi-joking answer. So when I was going through the program, I was working full time and I had a tiny baby. And then at the end of the program, I had another tiny baby. So it was crazy. And so I say, sometimes you just got to lower your standards. And I don't know if that's terrible advice, but there's certain things that I used to do, like as a mom on the weekend, I used to bake a lot. And I just said, that's something that I'm going to work on later when I finish. And it's not that I'm never going to do it again, but it's something that I'm just not going to spend as much time on right now. You know what I mean? And I think that's just kind of how it is. Like when, you pile too much on your plate, it's stressful, but it also helps you kind of figure out which things you just don't want to have on your plate anymore, right? That maybe you were just like carrying them along because you could, and now you have too much on your plate and you have to kick something off the edge. And so you figure out what that is, so that when you finish your degree and you graduate, you can like just not do those things that you never really wanted to do. So I don't know if that's a helpful answer or not, but
I always felt very, very good when I hear and I see Kaylin. It's like, okay, she has much more load than me. I'm okay.
Any other suggestions?
I would say that you're not going to have a lot of free time. So to Kaylin's point, figure out what you're going to do with your free time and make sure it counts. I also didn't have all the load she did. I did travel a lot. And so the ability to do things online made it. I was okay with me if I didn't make straight A's. So, that's not something I did my whole life, but I was learning as long as I was doing that. And I relied more on the team members sometimes than others, but then I volunteered when I knew I had the time, I could pick up what I could. So it's like any work you're going to have in life, you've got to be able to how to distribute the load and know when to raise your hand and say you need the team member.
Wonderful, thank you. Dr. Laurence, I'm going to skip a few questions and I'm going to ask, so have you had any challenges or opportunities working in this field during the pandemic? I bet some of the panelists have interesting stories around being able to make big dynamic business decisions quickly using data and analytics during this pandemic, or maybe done it differently.
I could give the experience from our side, from ConocoPhillips. We were making a lot of people changes and decisions very quickly, and we had to look through a lot of data to back up a lot of the decisions. Overall, as you can see, we're back in their offices. So there was a lot of questions on our side. Do we work from home? Do we work from the office? What is the employees, their risk levels? So a lot of different changes. Overall, what we saw is that people is a lot more efficient working from home than in the office. We had goals for the year that they were we did a lot more than what we would have done if we were in the office. Still, it is a little bit of a disruption. The part that we saw lacking was a little bit on the brainstorming, the creativity, the feeding from each other, because that is so easy to do when you're in a whiteboard and people could bring different perspectives. And that's one of the reasons why the company really wanted to go back to the office. But yeah, lots of changes this year.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's a good field to be working from. I mean, to some extent, like with what I do, you know, I just bought a couple extra monitors and I'm working from home till at least mid-year next year probably. So it's been a big transition, and it's one that we've still been able to really keep up on, I think, because of what we do. We also have a close team and definitely having to have more virtual teamwork, but we've been able to do it. We've also parts of the company rely on us for the data piece. With I deal with so much of our energy usage data that we've almost created our own pathways and storage components for it. So we've had a lot of other parts of the company come to us to help get insights on kind of what's happening within the market with this pandemic time and how people are using electricity to help other parts of the business. So we've kind of interestingly had some visibility because of our ability to work with lots of data at a certain time. We've had a lot more visibility to other areas and other teams that we've been able to help out through it.
Great, thank you. Dr. Laurence, you want to go into some of the other submitted questions?
Yes, I'm going to ask the second one, which is a very real problem where I am right now. We're challenged with this. In a world filled with petabytes of data, time is of the essence. Not all data captured is clean. As a matter of fact, all data captured is messy. What is your team's approach to cleaning data sets?
We only clean the data that we're going to use and that we have a business case and a business value to use it for, because otherwise, as you mentioned, we just spend all the time cleaning the data and no time doing any of the analytics fun.
I second that, focusing on what you're actually going to use, because we sort of have a lot of our customer data and we had different systems, and we kind of had a big project of sort of getting it all together in one clean way, because that's something we actually use every day for all different projects. And so not worrying about all the other sides of it, just really on what we use on the interval data, and like whatever we need is what I'll clean and put together. So I think I like the idea of just focusing on what you're actually going to use versus boiling the ocean of everything that you have the potential and potentially have your hands on.
How do you approach cleaning the data? Is it mostly an automated process with software tools, or do you give it to your junior analysts?
Both.
Both?
It all depends what it is. We're quite fortunate that HR data, payroll data has to be very clean. So we don't find, I mean, even though we find issues and then some of the HR professional needs to clean them. I used to work on the subsurface data where we had a lot of the wells, the production. That data is super messy. We use both. We had some technology, we had some people. But we try to balance that. We just don't do the data cleanup, because even the junior people, they get discouraged. They all want to do analytics. They all want to do machine learning. So if we want to keep them in the company, we need to give them a little bit of both.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to combine two questions that were submitted. One is about looking to change industries and what strategy do you recommend to do that? And the second part of that is, are there good entry-level positions to start with for someone that has Excel experience but no deep analytical experience? So both kind of career related.
So I could only talk about ConocoPhillips. And we do have level entry positions. There are very few. Normally, we have a very strong program for interns. So it's normally young people that they have either second year, third year on their degrees, and they spend the summer maybe working with us, and then they follow up with just having level entry positions. They start maybe just doing a little bit on the data, but very quickly we move them through a training to get into some of the more analytical stuff. I think slowly those roles, they're going to disappear. And I think what we see is more people with the machine learning skills, with the skills in analytics, because that is almost common in every field. We have people with those skills being required in supply chain, in finance, in engineering. We actually have a program with Texas A&M to bring that as a certificate to complement some of our engineers, because we saw that lack of the skill sets. So I think we do have some entry level, but slowly I think those are going to disappear and they're going to move into more people with the analytics skills.
I'll second some of that. I think I came into the program with mainly Excel knowledge. I VBA coding and stuff, but minimal. And when I got out of it, I did start kind of an entry-level role that with Constellation. So I was hired in kind of with no experience in analytics, just the master's. I did have experience in another industry. And so I, as financial analyst, I was very familiar with kind of looking at financial reporting and utilizing those kind of skills. And so what I kind of did in my interviews and in that process is focused on how I had this skill set that, could complement what I'm learning, and making sure to emphasize, you have a job, you've got something that you're learning and that you're kind of an expert on. And I think you can pivot that to add skills. I think to the point of, depending on the industry, I think smaller or other companies, like when I was at Landry's, the restaurant company, didn't have a whole in-depth analytics department. So that was something where you could potentially plug in somewhere and grow something. So I think a lot of that hire interns and they kind of have a whole process for the entry-level piece. But I do think there are certain industries that really analytics hasn't penetrated specifically to somebody. So you would be able to come in or even within an industry you're already in there. I did look at using my degree within that company, online gaming, some other kind of casino related things that they had. Didn't necessarily want to go down that route, but there were kind of opportunities opening up even within. So I think if you can, having a subject matter expert on an industry, even if it's not something, can help pivot it into, because that's a big piece that you can add the skills to.
Thank you. Any interesting questions left, Dr. Laurence?
Just one. I'm interested in your response on data visualization, since it's a must these days. We touched on it earlier just a little bit. Do you have any examples that come to mind that you feel worked really well regarding the analysis combined with the data visualization and then the skill of effective storytelling?
for us, it's the starting point at any analytics level that we do in the company. And it is the easiest starting point. It's really hard to sell some of the data science type of solutions because people don't understand it. You start talking about confusion metrics and you've already confused them. But everybody could understand, oh, this is your data. This is what it's telling you. Have you noticed this when you select certain variables, how the other ones are correlated and what's the difference? So what we've seen is, and unfortunately, because we all like doing more of the data science, the starting point is with the visualization. And then once they see that, it's really easy to start taking the next steps. So at all levels, as I mentioned, in the production engineers or operations, finance, HR, all of our groups, the starting point is like, okay, let's visualize the data. Let's see what we see, what insights can we get. And then we start moving them slowly into, what about that complex problem that you can't solve? Let's take a look. And then we get into more of the in-depth of like, oh, multivariate analysis. You don't not only have to think of 2 variables. We can think of 3 and 4. And that, it blows their mind. It's like, wow, is that magic? It's like, no, it's just statistics. But yeah, for us, don't underestimate the visualization and the storytelling, because that's your entry point.
I agree. I think that the visualization piece is not optional. It's essential. It's important at the beginning when you've gotten your data and it's sort of clean, right? And so you put it up in front of someone, and if it's a good visualization, if it's a bad visualization, they'll look at it and say, okay, that's interesting. If it's a good visualization, they're going to look at it and they're going to start asking you all these questions that you don't have the answers to, right? Like, well, why is that month high? What happened there? And well, can we look at this? Can we filter these out? You know, and you might not be able to answer those questions right away, but that's what's kind of like showing that, okay, now they're seeing their data and they're getting to where you guys can have a communication about what you can look into. And then, you know, like Paloma said, then you can kind of get into the modeling and the fancy stuff. And then at the end of the day, if you're going to present this to some kind of like executive leadership, you have to be back in the visualization space again, right? Because you can say like, well, these variables are statistically significant and these aren't. But if it's some, you know, an output, that's not going to sell anyone on anything, right? Whereas if it's presented in a way that's interpretable and capable, then you can actually like use that data and use that analysis.
And do you think storytelling is just a skill that you learned on the job?
I think it's definitely something learned on the job. I think it also, that's the piece that we keep talking about, but having some subject matter, like having some piece to it, like anyone, you know, you can take the data, but being able to take that data and then storytell it to somebody where it's how it is impactful to the company and how this, not just, okay, I created this model or I did this, you know, I found these variables work well together. It's taking it and actually, so this is how we can be actionable, or I think this is adding that business expertise, I think is really like the important part of getting it actually used within the business. And I think that's one thing the master's program really does focus on, is not just knowing all of the levers to pull, but then knowing how we can take that and actually make changes within the company, because most of us are professionals, not necessarily in academia, we need results, or we need, you know, we're trying to get more sales, we're trying to get answers and lower attrition and other things. So by telling the story is how I think you can deliver that data and deliver your model.
A question from chat. So it is, the Capstone project provides a unique opportunity to apply learnings to a data set relevant to where a student may wish to position themselves in the future. What advice would you give to someone trying to craft their strategy to their capstone project?
One piece of advice I say is just having a lot of conversations with a lot of people about it. Like, here's my capstone, here's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, build a model, and just to a lot of people, because I had to talk to a lot of people at my company before I got an idea of what I could possibly do for a project, something that would, be something that would work as a model, something that was allowed to use as a data set. It took a lot of conversations. So just don't be shy about having those conversations with a lot of people and start them early. And then the other thing is, like, just dive and try something. You might start with a data set and spend some time messing with it and find out that it's maybe not going to work for whatever reason. And don't be afraid of that to start trying. Just dive in, and you'll still learn something from that experience, even if that data set ends up not panning out. And you'll make connections with the person you were working with, and so there's still going to be benefits to just diving in and trying.
I think I would add to that, having a good sponsor and a good SME, someone that really helps you and want to see you success, because it's a long process, it's a marathon, and then you realize, oops, it's already, time is here. So start early, because you always run out of time. Looking back, I was like, oh, I wish I could have done this, and I could have done that, and this could have been better. I was like, yeah, we ran out of time, and we were so busy with the coursework and lots of other balancing life as well. So start early, have a good sponsor, someone that is going to help you along the way. I think was critical for me.
Thank you all so much. If we could get either a virtual round of applause, or if you want to unmute and give these wonderful, brave ladies a round of applause, and thank you for sharing their insight and their expertise with us. It has been an absolute joy to see all of you today. And again, I cannot thank you enough, panelists, for being with us today. If you're interested in an analytics program, of course, look at us, look at others. We think fit is really, really important, and there are all kinds of programs out there to help you. Thank you so much, ladies. Have a great day. And
Thank you.
Myra,
Thank
bye.
you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Thank
everyone.
you.
Yeah.
Javier, you're amazing. Thank you.
Myra, you put this one together. It's a good job.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right.
Bye.